Hey guys, it's Sleepy Reader here in my car on a really dreary afternoon here in rainy old Portland. This is my comic book thoughts for the comics of the past week. I've been focusing on my favorites mostly, although I will talk about one other comic. So the two comics that I really loved this week, there were just two, were Pax Americana #1 or Multiversity #4, if you will. Multiversity being just a series of #1s of essentially alternative comic books, imaginary comic books. And you have to imagine they continue on after these issues, or really some of them feel like they started before these issues, even though they're numbered #1. And my other favorite was Batman and Robin. And I thought I would talk a little bit about Wonder Woman #1, which is numbered as Wonder Woman #36, but it would have been really useful had they renumbered it, kind of in the vein of Batgirl. But let me start with Batman and Robin. This was number 36, and Batman and Robin has been a great series with some, in my opinion, some lulls throughout the New 52. Peter Tomasi just seems to have a great handle on Batman, on Robin, on the whole family, on kind of a fun but slightly crazy, wonky, off-kilter approach to Batman. And it feels like in this storyline where Batman goes to Apokolips to rescue the corpse of Damian, his son, not me, Damian. I'm Batman, I am your son. No. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. It's been a long day at work. I'm just on my way home. But, what was I saying? Yeah, so anyway, I think this eventually will make a fantastic sort of standalone trade if you're just into Apokolips and the Jack Kirby mythos. To see this particular take on it is just a hell of a lot of fun. Clearly, Patrick Gleason, the artist, is having a ball with it and doing some of the best work, that I have seen him do. I haven't seen all his work, but all the work I've seen of his has been good, and this is excellent. It feels highly emotional, highly alien, like you get the sense of being in this alien, bizarre landscape. Super action-packed, super intense. Fantastic coloring, too, by John Kalisz. I would be happy if they just extended this for another few issues before they get to their plot point. Although it ends with a nice beat, a nice turning up of the volume that makes me really eager for the next issue. And I had some problems at first with this Robin Rises series. I felt like they were kind of postponing things before they went to Apokolips too much, but maybe now in retrospect I'll decide it was all worth it. I can imagine myself double dipping and buying this in a trade. And I had a little bit of a problem at first with their portrayal of Apokolips. I had this fantasy in my head of how it would go and how Batman visiting Apokolips would be, and it's a very different vision than the vision I had. But now that I've let go of that, it's totally excellent. And I had a problem with Batman wearing this super-powered supersuit, but Tomasi's actually handling it really well and making it a really cool device for this huge, epic Apokolips visit. So yeah, I always like Batman and Robin, but if I have time, I'm gonna go back and read the other issues in this sort of set of Batman and Apokolips, because I'm just really loving it. It really clicked in with me here. A lot of people say Batman and Robin is the best Batman book currently published, and they may well be right. Then, how do you even talk about Pax Americana? It's, for those of you who don't know, it's the reuniting of Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, who have been a brilliant team together, most notably on All-Star Superman, but they've done some other very interesting things together. Most notably, in my mind, their all-new X-Men, or whatever it was called at the time, New X-Men, that they did together. This is, as I said before, a pretend one-shot from the Charlton universe, which I guess they have decided is universe number 4 in their 52-universe multiverse. And as many people who know the history of things, The Watchmen by Alan Moore, the seminal graphic novel The Watchmen, is based on the Charlton Heroes, but DC didn't want, once they saw what Alan Moore was doing with the Charlton Heroes, they didn't want him to do it with those heroes, so they let him make up his own version of the same heroes. So here, Grant Morrison takes it back to the Charlton Heroes and does his own trippy spin on Watchmen. And if there's any doubt, it begins with dripping blood, much in the vein of the beginning of Watchmen. And I don't know how this would read to someone who's never read Watchmen or is unfamiliar with the basic ideas of Watchmen. I couldn't help throughout have Watchmen evoked to me. Like the scenes with the Question and the Blue Beetle fighting crime together and chatting, and their two opposing philosophies or opposing personality types. The scene with Captain Adam, pulling a dog apart, or contemplating the universe and the different dimensional views of things. So it's the imprint of Watchmen is all over here. Now, how much of that could you argue is the imprint of the Charlton books originally without Watchmen? I can't say, because I haven't read enough Charlton books. And to a large degree, I'm more familiar with the Charlton characters like the Question and Blue Beetle by their appearances in their post-Charlton life. I think I, as a kid, owned 1 or 2 issues of the Blue Beetle, and maybe some anthology book with the Question in it. But, so yeah, it would be very interesting. I know that Travis Oddfellow Thoughts has been very interested in going back now to the original Charlton. I don't know why reading The Watchmen didn't do that, except that they're not identified as those particular characters directly. So it's funny because I heard on some podcast the claim, and it's probably completely true, I just don't know enough, that that Grant Morrison is actually very critical of The Watchmen. So maybe in here somewhere can be found critiques of The Watchmen too. But the irony there is, it just feels to me like without The Watchmen, without the context of The Watchmen, this would be even more of just a bizarre trip without so much context. That said, I thought it was a brilliant masterpiece of a comic book. I need to read it and reread it. I've only read it once. I've sort of glanced through it again and thought about it some more, discussed it on the Comic Book Roundtable a bit, or listened to other people discussing it. And part of what, to me, makes this a masterpiece is Frank Quitely. He has done a brilliant job, and some of that may have been directed by Grant Morrison. I'm sure much of it did in unusual layouts and unusual just all kinds of it's cutting edge, it's bleeding edge superhero comics. There's just so many good pages. Here's one page where you have to read it across here and then back down here as you follow the characters walking around. There's a lot of great things of characters walking around. This is the only page where it goes in that particular direction, but some other pages do some unusual things too. But you don't get lost. You do get sucked into it, and it's mesmerizing. It's like falling in love with a Fellini movie or something. Or that's the wrong, the wrong comparison probably. But it's just like, oh, I've never quite seen this done this way, but it all seems so right and so cool. Yeah, so I might do another video when I reread it. But it's definitely, this is a comic. I would recommend this for people who like comic books that are a little more out there and a little more pushing the boundaries. What's the word? Pushing the boundaries on a technical level almost. And it's a great item just for that. And you don't need to read the rest of Multiversity. This, to me, is about 3 or 4 times better than any of the other issues of Multiversity, and I liked some of them and was kind of meh on some of the others. Well, there were only 3 before this. I loved the first issue, and I kind of liked the second issue, and I was very meh on the third issue. And then I'm just head over heels in love with this. I do kind of question if that much... like, what real story was here? If you unravel all the timelines, the story is just the story of the ending of the superheroes, I think, with a few little bits about a faint connection to possible other universes through comic books and through Captain Atom. But that's left at the periphery, and why the heroes were why a group of heroes was formed and then why they were broken up is kind of what this issue's about. But it doesn't tell us, I don't think, the consequences of breaking up the team of heroes. And it's probably hidden in here is a reason why a certain hero assassinates a certain president, and the role of the vice president who then becomes president. I'm going to have to unravel all of that, I guess. But when I think about it, it really is like a snippet, and the significance of everything is not there the way it ultimately is in The Watchmen. But still, this is a single issue. Well, it's a 40-page issue. I think maybe 38 pages of actual story. That packs in so much. It feels like you're reading three issues, or maybe 4 issues of a comic book, the amount of time it takes you. There's some pages in here where we're working with a 16-panel grid. So I think, in a way, quietly saying, let's take what Dave Gibbons did and push it up a few more levels. So there's a crazy number of small panels, but you can always see clearly what's going on in them. Not only is Quietly's layouts fabulous and pushing the edges everywhere, the actual quality of the art inside each panel is really amazing, and the coloring's really nice. So yeah, I would say, for any of my friends who are okay with a non-linear story and just enjoying the art and enjoying the almost intellectual pleasure of pushing the craft of comics, just buy this one issue. And then I want to say, that's all hyperbole. I shouldn't tell anyone to buy anything. I'm just telling you my thoughts. So I'm sorry about that. But I'm so excited about this, I would say, if you're curious, just buy the one issue and don't worry about whether you get the whole series or not. So, it's tricky to talk about Wonder Woman. I totally loved the Azzarello Chang run. It's the first time I loved Wonder Woman as a character. It was, in my opinion, the best New 52 series overall, if you take the whole 36 issues into account. It created a version of Wonder Woman and of Wonder Woman's personal universe, not her DC-wide universe, that was hugely compelling for me. And now with the new creative team of Finch and Finch, Mrs. Finch and Mr. Finch, she's being brought back very directly into the DC universe, specifically the Justice League, and also they bring in the Swamp Thing. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but probably inevitable. Where to go with this? The thing is, different people had different reactions. I've seen a lot of reactions. People I respect loved this book. People I respect hated this book and thought it was the worst book ever published in the history of comics. So I will say that it felt like the writer was struggling to me. And she is a beginning writer, and it's probably unfair of DC to their fans to put a beginning writer on Wonder Woman. But they probably felt it made up for the fact that her husband, David Finch, has such a huge following. And he is, I can take him or leave him. And I loved his drawing of the Swamp Thing. I was just constantly unhappy with his drawings of Wonder Woman's face. She just seemed like a 17-year-old girl to me. And although I suppose she's supposed to be pretty young, in the previous incarnation of the previous 36 issues, she had a strong maturity about her, and a confidence and a can-do, problem-solving, face whatever she has to face kind of personality. Kind of the person who is the unifier and the glue of a group. And now she's a different person. She's more insecure and troubled, and who knows what else, because we aren't given that much in this issue. The other thing is, you can see the writer struggling with how she does a long introduction about water, and it's clearly supposed to be thematic. And a confident writer a confident and highly experienced writer like Brian Azzarello will have themes in his stories too, but he's not putting them out there, on the first page and describing them in a bunch of panels. But I kind of thought, well, this is okay. I'm up for a theme about water. And some people said, well, this was an excuse to show her in the shower. But I thought the shower scene was not sexy at all. So it wasn't about, showing the hot girl in the shower. I thought it was supposed to be, something psychological about her. And the problem was, then I wasn't sure what it was telling us. I think that, I forgot her first name. Mrs. Finch, Meredith Finch, will get back to this water theme, and in a trade, it'll make a lot more sense. In a single issue, it just seemed like the water theme was brought up and then dropped. Maybe it'll connect to that, at the center of the book, but it's not very much of a center, is some mystery about cities disappearing into sinkholes and thousands or millions of people being killed. And then maybe that has to do with water and the theme of water. But we learn about the sinkholes. We have Wonder Woman blame Swamp Thing, try to beat him up. That lasts for a few panels, really, but panels that are full page spreads. And And then he says it wasn't me, and she believes him, and she goes off and flies around with Aquaman and discusses some of her feelings. And then we get back to Paradise Island, where her mom the statue of her mom seems to have been melted down. So is her mom dead? And what will that lead to next issue? I think exploring some of these themes would be good, either on Amazon Island or things falling into sinkholes and making this a superhero book, but it felt scattered and little different. She was trying to weave in the elements, and she's not so skilled at it yet. And she was giving us too much in a first issue, and yet giving us too little, because it was all so spread out and focused on these giant spread pages. So those are the two elements for me. It's the big shock switching from, one of the very best comics to a kind of beginner's attempt at a comic book, one that it seemed like the editor should have helped her more with it, reeled her in, said let's focus on one or two threads and not 3 or 4 threads. And then also for me, I think some of the people who kind of orgasmed over this book orgasmed over the art. They love this David Finch art. And I can see his skill, but it doesn't work for me one way or the other. I don't hate him. I kind of liked the cover a bit. I loved his way of drawing Swamp Thing, but other than that, it didn't make much of a difference to me. So for me, I'm just gonna stop reading Wonder Woman for now, and I will listen to what other people are saying about it, and maybe I'll pick back up on it if Meredith Finch seems to be getting her feet as a writer. But it still might take me a while, because it's not, it's not going to, I think even as she gets better, for me, it's not going to be DC's best comic book. I think for someone who loves Wonder Woman and just wants more Wonder Woman stories, it'll be all right. If for people who love David Finch style comic books, I think it'll be great. For me, I think falling in love with characters and feeling like I always have to follow characters is a trap that I rarely fall into anymore, because of age, because of years upon years of reading comic books. I just realized characters that I loved at one point are not the characters that I'm going to love now, and the creators make a huge difference. They make more of a difference than ever. I once totally loved Captain America, but that was a long time ago, and he's not the same character in the Marvel Universe as he was when I loved him. Well, I won't go into that now. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me on all these thoughts. And I hope to find more time to make videos. Whenever you see me doing a car video, that's a sure sign that I'm feeling like I don't have much time on my hands. But if I'm not too sleepy, I might make another video. Talk to you later.